We're going to go without the intro this morning. I tell you, StreamYard, you never know what you're going to get. Anyway, hey, by the way, that was not our fault yesterday. And we actually ended up being one of the more fortunate ones to get back on because it was obviously shut down. At least the audio was across the country and I guess the world. Anybody trying to do a podcast or any type of meeting or broadcast through StreamYard, you could see what they were doing, but you couldn't hear what they were doing. But we got back on, man, and we had a good show yesterday. Welcome into the Auburn podcast this morning. Hopefully everything will stay up. We didn't do an intro this morning, but hey, we're here. We're just going to jump right in. Portal updates, the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game coming up this weekend, and then basketball this weekend. So looking forward to seeing this game coming up on Saturday. It's going to be a really good one. The North-South game's on Friday at 3, and then we have the Alabama-Mississippi game this weekend. But, man, the roster is loaded with a lot of Auburn players. And, Randy, you and I have already broken this roster down one time before. This is one of the more loaded rosters we've seen, and I know we can say that probably every year.
We can now.
But, man, this is a unbelievable roster, not just Auburn players, but, you know, players that are going all over the place. I mean, this is just a loaded roster.
Well, we have started where we can say it almost every year, Brett, and that's a great thing covering high school sports here in the state, to have the benefit of saying a state as small as ours, population-wise, is putting as much talent out there as we do. I posted a picture last night that came across from the HSAA from David Holdsford. There was a picture of Jordan Crawford and KJ Lacey together, Brett, and everybody knows how great those two have been, not only this year. It is unfortunate for KJ Lacey. He had to meet up with Jordan Crawford to win a state championship, and it didn't work out well for him. But it was a great picture with those two. There's no part of me that doesn't think that those two move on to the college game and have tremendous careers. I'll start with both of them because I think that is the best place to start when you're talking about the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, with a quarterback that has put up numbers that is really second to none here in this state, Brett, and it's not at a small classification school. It's at one of our best schools. He's been with one of our state's best players all time in Ryan Williams. This year he doesn't have Ryan Williams and still takes the team to a state championship game, only losing the one game. So I can't say enough good things about him. I love how active he is back there playing quarterback, Brett. I hate he's leaving the state of Alabama to go to Texas. He is the imps of what I would be looking for as an Auburn quarterback moving forward. I'm not the one choosing them, but I'm not saying anything you haven't said over the last couple of years. But he's got the ability to run the football, but he's got outstanding arm talent, and he's got moxie about him. So I hate he's leaving the state. And then you made several posts yesterday around Jordan Crawford that he's the two of ours favorite recruit in this 2025 class for Auburn. I think he's a no-brainer. I think that you see him win the MVP of the Class 6A championship game, had 4.5 tackles for loss. He had 3 sacks. He had 7.5 total tackles. He's just outstanding. Jumped off the field at you, Brett. So there's two good places to start. Your thoughts on those two guys?
I don't know if you can start anywhere better. I'll jump in because this is an Auburn show. You're talking about Jordan Crawford. We're going to continue to talk about him for a long time. And, yeah, Glenn jumps in talking about the great get for Texas and KJ Lacey. Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, you're right. I think a lot of Auburn people would have liked to have seen KJ Lacey at Auburn. But, you know, Auburn got Deuce Knight. And, man, the reports yesterday, a practice from the Mississippi roster, he looked outstanding as far as all the different types of throws. And, again, they're going through drills and stuff. But, you know, the ability for him to make all the touch throws and then the intermediate throws, I'm excited about what Auburn got in Deuce Knight. I don't know that we've had as highly anticipated quarterback that people talk about as far as arm talent and size and things like that coming out of high school. I don't remember one us getting in recent years that has this much notoriety. So
Bo Nix was close.
You're right. Bo Nix was close.
He's the best rookie quarterback in the NFL right now. So He's a no-brainer. We
Right.
didn't take advantage of the talent that we got in Bo Nix, but you and I were really high on him, and he deservedly was being talked about during that time as a 5-star, and he's proven out to be. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist and close to winning a national title there at Oregon, and went through a tough spell there at Auburn, but was really resilient and tough back there. So I agree with you, though. I bet you that Deuce Knight's still even a higher rated recruit than Bo Nix was back then.
Yeah, but I'll stand corrected on that. Yeah, Bo Nix, I mean, everybody wanted him, and he proved why. I mean, you and I watched him in Pinson Valley. I guess I just forget because we did waste him. But that doesn't mean that wasn't Auburn's guy, and he should have stayed here as far as if Auburn would have had their crap together. Not saying he didn't make the right decision. He did make the right decision, go to Oregon, finish out his career, and you see where he is now. But it's a shame that you know we lost him for his last couple of years, and if we'd have had our stuff together, no telling what he could have been able to do. But nevertheless, Deuce Knight on the Mississippi side, obviously all Auburn fans are excited and are waiting to watch. But he's going to have a defense is going to be tough to navigate. If you look at this Mississippi team having to block this defensive line, they have a bunch of Auburn commitments and signees now on there with Antonio Coleman and Malik Autry and Jordan Crawford, like you just talked about. And then at linebacker, you're going to have Caleb Falk. And then in the secondary, you're going to have Eric Winters and Anquan Fagans. I mean, you're also going to have Zion Grady up there that's a commit to Ohio State. This is one of the best, again, I'll continue to say it, groups that I've seen on an Alabama roster. And, you and I looked at some of these guys. I mean, Timothy Merritt, I mean, he just made play after play after play. He's going to Tennessee. I mean, that's another big-time player that's going to be in the secondary back there for Team Alabama. And I can keep going on down. Naeem Alford's going to be back there. Again, I can just go down the entire list, but this is a star-studded, a defensive group. And the great thing for Auburn people watching is we got a bunch of them. We got way more than our fair share of this group.
Well, you get 9 to the top 12 from the state, you're going to have a lot playing in all-star games. And the Alabama-Mississippi game it's the standard here in the state. If you get asked, you normally attend. I can't remember back as long as we've been covering and broadcasting this game, how many have turned this offer down to go play in the Alabama-Mississippi game. I can't think of many at all. But also don't get too caught up in how well any one individual plays in this game. It's really not real football. I say this about all-star basketball events, maybe a little more than even football, Brett, but you roll the basketball out there and you can see the sheer athleticism in some players, but it's not a structured game, so you really can't tell how they would play in a system. And it's the exact same way when you watch this football. I can only think of a few players in this football game offensively that I left going, my gosh, they're no-brainers. They're so good that they don't have to have 4 or 5 practices, and they're that ready for the college game. And I'll shoot it over to you. And, Brett, we've been doing this thing for 18 years, buddy. I mean, we've seen some amazing talent on both sides, Alabama and Mississippi, in this game. The one that does stand out to me that I thought was the best quarterback I've seen in the game is A.J. McCarron. He was our MVP that day. You and I were calling that game in Mobile. And, Brett, he was light years away from everyone else as far as just leadership ability, the way that he handled that game. And that was a really talented Alabama team, if you remember, with DJ Fluker and who else was on that squad? I mean, it was just
Drake Patrick.
Mark Barron was on that squad. I mean, I can keep going. This was a really, really talented
squad.
It was
loaded.
It was a talented squad, and A.J. McCarron was amazing. You and I left even as Auburn fans going, man, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. And Kerryon Johnson was another one offensively that I left in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game looking at you going, Brett, he is going to be the real deal. I didn't know because you and I got caught up with Kerryon with basketball as a starter for Madison Academy in the 8th grade, playing point guard. And he was really, really good even then. And his brother, I think, was Mr. Basketball in the state.
Karan Johnson that went to Michigan
He
Michigan
went to
State.
Belmont. I think he went to Belmont originally and maybe ends up somewhere else. But long story short, he was a
No,
great player.
he didn't end up at Michigan State. You're right. The other kid from Madison Academy ended up playing at Michigan
He
State.
did. But
So,
Karan was Mr. Basketball,
yeah.
and he went to Belmont. He was a point guard. He was a little smaller than Carry-On. So you and I were caught up in how good
Right.
those Madison Academy basketball squads. So I didn't know really how good at the top level Carry-On would be, but I watched in that game, and he was head and shoulders above anybody else offensively for either team, and that played its way out. So both of those guys end up becoming all SEC players of the year contenders, if not winners, multiple years. And so you can see in this game, but also don't get caught up if you're an Auburn fan and Deuce Knight doesn't do a lot offensively. Look,
Right.
KJ Lacey just took a Saraland squad that's coached by one of the best coaches in the country in Jeff Kelly and matched up with this defensive line for Parker. And KJ Lacey had one of the toughest football games I can remember calling for him over the last several years. That's how good that defense is. And that's how good I think this Alabama defense is going to be. I'm not saying Deuce Knight doesn't go out there and light us up like a Christmas tree, but I would be shocked if he did, Brett. But I'm not going to read into it too much based off of what goes on this Saturday.
No, I'm not either. Alvin Henderson, I've had a lot of people ask me, does he compare to Carry-On Johnson? And the reason they ask is, Carry-On played in Madison Academy at the time. Were they 3A?
They were.
Okay. Alvin Henderson playing in 2A football.
Mm-hmm.
So 1A football. But still lower classification. 1A to 3A is considered lower classification. And because people are asking, can Alvin Henderson translate to this level? Because and it's a good question. I think it's a fair question. I mean, he obviously amassed a lot of numbers, but he touched the ball like a quarterback every snap for Elba, and rightfully so. And they rode him for everything they could get out of him. I could see him, and I'm not comparing him to Carry-On Johnson. I'm saying that could be something that you could look at moving forward in how he moves and adapts and maybe can become some type of versatile because Carry-On was so good out of the backfield as well, catching the football. I think that's a good comparison.
Let me jump in. I don't think that's a fair comparison at all, athleticism wise. I've got some good comparisons, and I'd like to kick it over to you of who I think Alvin Henderson looks like. But here's who Carry-On was. And the reason I say this, because Brett and I did get to see him play basketball, and you see how great an athlete overall that he was. But Carry-On could have been an All-American at safety, Brett. He was an amazing safety in high school. He had extreme ball skills. If you threw the ball in the air against Madison Academy, a very good chance he's going to pick it off. And not only pick it off, he's going to take it to the house. So he had ball skills all over the field. He could have been a slot receiver, Brett. He was about 6'1", so he wasn't a smaller running back. He kind of had a little bit more of a KLS build than I think. But I think Alvin Henderson has a lot better running back build coming out.
He's 205 pounds. He's bigger than.
Yeah, he's a thicker, bigger, more durable looking back than you get with Carry-On. Carry-On was an amazing overall athlete. Whatever he did, I mean, I'm sure if he picked a baseball up, he would have been the best at that. He was just that type of athlete. I think Alvin Henderson is a true running back, a running back's running back. Got a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to transition to the college game and put up great numbers, but it is going to be a major transition. So I'm sure this week will be kind of eye-opening to see how he plays against this great talent, because he hasn't matched up with this kind of talent in high school. He doesn't see it too often, but he looks the part. He runs the times. When you see him, you think that he can, and so I still think he's a great get. But there's a reason that someone with his numbers that's up for National Player of the Year is ranked the 12th best recruit in the state of Alabama. Somebody with those type of numbers normally would be 1, 2, or 3 recruit in the state of Alabama. I mean, you and I see one in Elliott City that's going to be the number 1 recruit in the state of Alabama next year. And the reason that Sedarian is that way is he's playing against 6A football. You see him matched up against the Spain Parks and the Saralands of the world. and he's still able to put up big time numbers, and he's one you want off the bus first. So Alvin's not quite that, Brett, but I still think we got a great one, and he's been so pro Auburn that I'm cheering for him. I hope he gets his ceiling's really high.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Remember last year in this game, Malcolm Simmons really had a good game, had a big touchdown catch in this game. So, I do expect Auburn players to shine. You got more than you normally do, and I hope that's a trend. I hope Auburn continues to rack up a lot of players. In the past on the Mississippi side, we've seen DK Metcalf, we've seen AJ Brown, we've seen Chris Jones. We've seen Cam Akers. I can keep going down the list of guys that all four of those are in the pros. Chris Jones been the more dominant of all of them, and they've had even more than that. But, man, there's talent upon talent to go around on both sides of the field for Mississippi and Alabama. So, again, some roster, two quarterbacks on this Alabama roster, KJ Lacey and Mason Mims from Oxford. So they'll get to split time in this game. I think overall the secondary is going to be a place to watch for Auburn fans with Winters and Fagans and those guys back there and see how they play. And because this is an all-star games where those kind of players can shine, secondary players, because you're going to have a lot of one-on-one matchups and a lot of opportunities to make open field tackles and things like that. So I do want to slide over and talk about a couple portal updates. One being Ahmad Harvey, because Auburn is going to need a running back. And a lot of people, if you're thinking, who is Ahmad Harvey? Where's he from? He's the Louisiana Monroe running back. He was one of the top running backs in the country this year. He'll be coming in on a visit to Auburn. Auburn's already seen him, obviously, earlier this year. Had 15 carries in that game for 60 yards. But he had let's see what his numbers were total this year. I think he rushed for 1,351 yards. His total was 10th highest in the nation this year. So Ahmad Harvey's a kid that could come in if Auburn signs him. He's 5'10", 205 pounds. He's almost the imps of Alvin Henderson. Okay, when you look at their size, they're almost identical in height and weight. So it's a kid that, again, has been bumped up to a 4-star in the portal. Was a 3-star coming out of high school, but is now a 4-star in the portal. Could be a good addition if Auburn could land him. You need another running back.
Well, it'd be a great room at that point. I really like that room. I don't know who I would lean on to be the starter. I still feel confident that if we can find a better, more consistent role for Jeremiah Cobb, that there's a lot of big play capabilities built into him, Brett, and we've really struggled finding a consistent way to get the football in his hands. But when he does have it in his hands, he's a game breaker. He's got breakaway speed. So I don't know if he becomes the speed sweep guy or we do a little bit more motion stuff with him, try to get the ball to him a little more out of the backfield. But I love Jeremiah Cobb. Damari Alston just hasn't had his opportunities yet. But the three of them are going to be the imps of one another. You're going to have Alvin Henderson, who's that exact same size, that's got the capability of catching the ball out of the backfield, and Harvey. That would be 4 really good backs. I feel very confident that Auburn's got a good room there, and it's our own fault if we can't get a couple of them to have really good years next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you look down at some of the other news out there, the kid from Duke is planning to visit Auburn. We talked about him yesterday, Randy. From a standpoint of stats, he didn't have any rushing stats to talk about. Had minus 79 yards rushing, but had almost 3,000 yards passing. Had 26 touchdowns. Had a good year for Duke, but from a dual threat standpoint, I'm not sure that's what you're looking for. Jackson Arnold is now planning to visit Auburn. We talked about him. It looked like he was going to end up at Mississippi State, but is still planning to visit Auburn, and it looks like Auburn is high on him. I don't know. I've gotten mixed feelings about that one. He didn't play after the Tennessee game, didn't play in our game. He was benched and then ended up coming back. And I looked at his numbers this year, and he ran the ball pretty good. But overall, it's hard to look at. I think he had 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Is Jackson Arnold a guy that we feel like can come in and turn this Auburn offense around? Is this Duke quarterback somebody we feel like? And then, we talked about yesterday some kids that might not be in the portal right now or may never get in the portal, but jump in and then a deal's done immediately because you've been going through back channels to talk to them. All eyes and information is going to swirl around this quarterback position. We can talk about running backs and we can talk about getting some tackles out of the portal, but this is going to be our talk on this program until we figure out who this guy is. And I just don't think you can miss on this guy. I think you have to have a sure enough guy you feel like is going to come in and be the guy on day one.
If it's not a definite, then I feel like Auburn's got to go the same path that some of these other schools have, and let's say, okay, Deuce Knight, got a lot of confidence in you. We're about to ride you out. And Auburn fans will give Hugh Freeze and staff a pass in year one if you go with a Walker White or a Deuce Knight. I don't know if he's ready. I haven't had the chance to see him. I don't know. I know he's coming in early enough that if he is, I know athletically he's ready. But there's been other quarterbacks in our conference that are true freshmen that maybe haven't taken their team to a conference championship game or to the playoffs, but you and I would take them right now. And I do think Auburn's in that. I don't know if there's a Cam Ward out there this year. Now, there may be, and you made mention of that yesterday, and I hope you're right. But there may be somebody that just hasn't announced yet that we've got a back channel understanding that they are going to, and we need them. But if we're not positive, the kid we got from Stanford and then adding Jackson Arnold's fine. Look, I'm not the one making these decisions, but I feel like if you go with a Jackson Arnold, that Walker White and Deuce Knight have a great opportunity to win the starting job next year. I don't look at him and go, oh, there comes Cam Ward. These guys have got another year that they're going to be able to sit over there and wait and watch. No, I think that if you bring Jackson Arnold in and he wins the job, that there's at least a 30% chance that we're going to get the same production that we got out of Peyton Thorne. I don't think he's some world beater.
I'm not high on Jackson Arnold. I'm just, that. I've been saying that really since day one. So, Czach just said, what is our take on Malik Murphy? I don't know, Czach, if you
I don't know enough about him. I know he
jumped in.
He's a strong arm, pocket passing quarterback.
He's not a runner.
He is not a runner. I've said it till I'm blue in the face if you're just tuning in or finding us on our podcast. But I've been saying this back to Malik Willis and before. Why in the world Auburn went away from what was working in 2014 to go to Auburn recruiting different quarterbacks than what Nick Marshall and others had the ability to do? I'll never understand it. And Hugh Freeze is in the same boat now. I don't know what our offensive identity is because I don't think we have one. You say we want to be an RPO team. I'm fine with that. But
that's what he wants to be.
But what does that mean? Does that mean you've got a dual threat quarterback like you had with Malik Willis at Liberty? If that's what the RPO guy is, then I've got to look down at those stat totals and see a quarterback that can at least scare you enough to rush for 600 to 800 yards a year. Because if you don't have a guy that can do that, then you take all of that away. All the eyes are on the running back if you're having to work the running game. My personal opinion is I want a Nick Marshall. I want a Malik Willis. Unfortunately, we had Malik Willis sitting there waiting to come in after Nick Marshall. And for whatever reason, we just stayed the course with some other quarterbacks and didn't give him a chance. And now he's playing in the pros and all those other guys aren't. So
you can run an RPO offense with any quarterback, but when you have one that can really be a threat, is truly a threat to run, man, it really opens up all phases of that offense.
Amen.
So you can pick who you want. I mean, but a guy that you look down and, yeah, he had a great year, but he had minus 79 yards rushing, means he is not a threat to run at all. So from a defensive standpoint, you're going, this guy's not a threat. So if he may show this, but we're not worried about it. If he wants to try to beat us, then we'll throw all our chips in the middle of the table on that. But we're not going to let him, hit us deep. We're not going to let him hit us with these little pop passes and things like that. We're not going to let the running back gash us. We're going to key on those guys, and if he pulls it and does some things, then we'll adjust. But when you look at those stats, they don't lie. These other guys that we're talking about rush for 500 to 700, even 800 yards. In addition to throwing for 2,000 to 2,500 yards. That is a true dual threat quarterback where you, as a defensive coordinator, have your hands full on how you're gonna scheme and defend an offense like that. So we'll continue to watch that. Really, no other news on quarterbacks. A highlight for one of Auburn signees, Donovan Starr, got Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee yesterday. I know a lot of people were disappointed when Auburn didn't get Naeem Alford, but then you end up picking up Donovan Starr. And Auburn really liked Donovan Starr out of the gate. And, we talked to Jason Caldwell, a good friend of ours, and, I think he said that both of them have positives, but he thinks from a standpoint of being able to walk in and have a more impact in a position, Donovan Starr may be a little bit more ready now. Naeem Alford may be a first-round draft pick, okay, down the line, and maybe he needs a little bit because right now it's really pure raw ability for Naeem Alford out there. When he gets coached up really well, I think he will be a first-rounder with his length and all that. But, Randy, you and I both saw Saturday he got burned a couple times. Now, one was an unbelievable catch. I don't count that one. But one, he jumped too soon. He stopped running, and the ball got over his head for a touchdown. So, again, players are going to make plays in games like that. But he also made a lot of plays offensively for Parker.
Yeah.
But you look at Donovan Starr, I think he's a guy that, again, can come in and be an immediate impact player with a little bit of coaching, and you'll see him maybe like some of these freshmen we had this year. You watch them every week get better and better and better.
We had some guys broadcasting with us this week that were in the booth with us during that 6A game, and, they made mention that, my gosh, I'd be danged if I'd waste Naeem Alford only on the defensive side of the ball as good as he is with the ball in his hands. Now, whether that's just special teams or he could be an offensive player, Brett. You can back me on that. I mean, that guy in the open field, and he plays physical.
Well, Parker had no running game until they brought him in there. And I mean, seriously.
It wasn't that Naeem Alford's got a really nice build, but he was downhill running. Now, he had a really good line in front of him, but, I can tell a soft player and a non-soft player pretty quick out on the field. Naeem Alford is not soft. He was willing to run the football. He was willing to throw his body in there. So I'm not sure what he's going to do at Oregon, Brett. To me, I think he's a more physical version of Travis Hunter. And I know Travis Hunter's probably going to win the Heisman, so that's some high praise for him. But I think Naeem's a bigger guy. And if you told me that he ends up being outstanding on both sides of the ball at Oregon, I'd say I believe you. I see that. But I think he's a no-brainer right now on the offensive side. At a slot receiver or something, or a speed sweep guy, or just finding ways to get the football in his hands. Percy Harvin-esque type player, Brett.
Right.
That's what Naeem Alford comes across to me like. So I'm with you on the defensive side. I'm just glad. I'm not worried about Auburn in the secondary. I'm not.
No, I mean, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this secondary class.
I agree. I mean, if you had to ask me, do I want Naeem Alford or Jordan Crawford, that's one of the easiest, quickest answers I could ever give in a recruiting battle ever for Auburn. Auburn needs and wants Jordan Crawford. Would have loved Naeem Alford. But I'm telling y'all, if you haven't seen Jordan Crawford play football, you're about to see it. He is special. I like the way he carries himself. I think he's got an amazing personality. He plays with an edge. He can run sideline to sideline. He's not as big as Nick Fairley.
He never showed that he got tired either.
He doesn't. He's not as big as Nick Fairley or Derek Brown. He reminds me more of a DeMarco McNeil. but he is an amazing talent, and I think he's the best recruit we got in this class. So
I
I'll
agree.
stick with that until I'm proven.
I don't know how he's not a 5-star.
I don't know.
I'm just telling you. All right, I got to shift over and talk about this for a minute. Again, it's going to sound like, we're on here whining, but everybody wants to defend their team. We're going to defend ours. I don't know how you justify putting Luther Burden and Ryan Williams on the first team All-SEC over KLS. I don't understand it. Numbers weren't as good, period. I mean, what are you looking at? Keandre Lambert-Smith had 50 catches, 981 yards, and 8 touchdowns for 19.6 yard average. Ryan Williams had 45 catches for 857, 8 touchdowns, and a 19-yard per catch average. Luther Burden didn't have a good year at all. He had 61 catches, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns for an 11.1 yard per catch average. But Luther Burden and Ryan Williams were first team All-SEC over KLS. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I have no clue who the hell votes, how it happens.
That's a joke.
That is a joke. That's Alabama getting the benefit of the doubt over everybody else, and it's the reason that all of us hate their guts so bad. It's things like that make you go, look, y'all know that even if Ryan Williams was there with KLS and the two of them were there instead of Luther Burden, that'd be fine. I can stick with that. But the idea that he didn't beat the other out and somebody voted for that's how skewed everything goes towards Alabama. And it always has, and it always will. You can either learn to love it or not. But I can tell you a fan base that doesn't like it. It's this Auburn fan base. And that one's ridiculous.
I got to put Jerron's comment up on that because that's about the only way I can say it. It's the truth. I mean, and again, it's an all-star list, and you may go, well, why are you harping? Here's the thing. The kid deserved it. This isn't about, nobody cares in 5 years who made first team all. That I agree because because guess what? You're going to look back and say that, Ryan Williams was first team All-SEC as a freshman. Luther Burden made first team All-SEC. There were stretches in Missouri's season where Luther Burden didn't hardly even catch a pass.
Agree.
And he was frustrated, and you heard the talk about how he wasn't having near the year that everybody expected. But, yeah, he garners a first-team selection just because of his name. And, look, we've Ryan Williams this thing to death, okay? Look, the kid's good. I give him that. But so is Malcolm Simmons, and so are some of these other freshmen. And look, you can say what you want to say, but KLS's numbers were better. And you may say he was a transfer portal guy and he came in 1 year. So what?
At a far inferior coached and led quarterback team. That's what KLS pulled off this year. And I think that's worthy of saying. You've got to take into consideration all the pieces around him. And KLS just put up massive numbers when Auburn was struggling week in and week out, only winning 5 games. It's true. Now, Missouri, Burton had that really hot start to the season, didn't he, Brett? And then he cooled off.
He did.
And he cooled off. And so maybe the name just hung in there with
That's
those that are voting based off of that. So I agree. But look, I despise Alabama as much as anyone, but the Missouri kids should have been left off and let it be KLS and Ryan Williams and be with it. I wouldn't have as big a problem.
I wouldn't have it. Yeah, this is not a shot at Ryan Williams.
No, I've said it a million times. I think he's the best high school football player my eyes have seen here in this state, and I've seen a lot of them over the last 20 years. He's that dynamic and that good. I'd love for him. Hey, if he wants to get in transfer portal and we figure out how to get him to Auburn, hell, I'm still all for it.
Glenn said he thought Wingo was a better freshman than Williams this year at Texas.
I'd have to look at his numbers.
I'd have to pull them up too, but I can look at this is an Auburn podcast, and KLS, and I said this during the year, I think he's one of the best receivers Auburn's ever had, period. Again, it came on a losing team, so you won't have as much notoriety moving into the future and people talking about, but he had such an impact on this team. He had 981 yards in receptions, and he could have had more in some of these games where he didn't play as much. I love the kid. I wish we had him for 2 more years I would have loved to have him coming back. But we talk about portal success. That was a home run grand slam to go get KLS out of the portal last year from Penn State.
Just still so disappointed that we didn't go and take advantage of some great quarterbacks that were out there to help him out and to help that receiving core out. I feel like we've learned our lesson, though, Brett. And I think what you said yesterday, I keep hoping for. Maybe there's somebody that we're backdoor talking to that just is not in the portal yet. They're either playing as a backup or sharing time that's in this 12-team playoff, or they're still planning on playing in the bowl game and don't want to put their name out there just yet. I'm still very hopeful that there's somebody sitting out there, because the only one that really wows me that's in the portal right now is the kid at Washington State. We'd all like him. I love his numbers.
Right.
I haven't watched him play as much, but when you look at his numbers and what's he throwing for 2,700 yards and he's rushed for 800, I'll take that, Brett.
Yeah, no.
Give me that. I'll take that. I know how physical he is. So unless someone else throws a name out there, I still haven't heard anybody that wows me. And I think we need a wow get in the transfer portal when it comes to the quarterback this year. And we need to spend whatever we've got to spend. And you and I have had some conversations recently with some of those that will be in the room deciding what they're willing to spend. And I'm just here to tell you that I feel like they're going to spend whatever they need to get the best quarterback. If that's who Hugh Freeze comes and says, look, we get this guy, he changes our whole football dynamic next year, the answer is going to be overwhelmingly yes, that he's going to have the money. So there is no excuse for that. Would you vouch for me on that, Brett?
No,
no excuse when it comes to that.
No doubt about it. I totally agree. I do, before we get off, want to say congratulations to Jarquez Hunter for making first team All SEC. Very deserving. Again, another one of those deals where we're a little bit sad that he's leaving and we didn't get maybe more out of him than even what he got. So,
man, we've had two amazing backs over the last 7 or 8 years for us to get as poor production offensively as we have gotten. For Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter to not be on a much better Auburn football team, as good as those two guys are and have been, is a travesty. But I'll say this, and I said it when Tank came back and he was the mic man at one of the games, Brett. Auburn fans should never forget how much those two guys love Auburn to hang in there with us during this nightmare of a time with our football program. But those guys hung in, man. They hung in and believed, and orange and blue, and I think we need to give them more credit than even, say, Cadillac and Ronnie for hanging in there with a really good team, going undefeated and playing well and always wanting to stick through with a really, really good team. Those two guys, they had to be a ton of people coming after them every year. And,
of course. We know Georgia was hot on Tank Bigsby 2 times.
Yeah.
We had heard the rumors on that. But, I'll say this, and I know we'll get to get off. But here's early in this portal, now that the portal's been open, and you normally see people jump in, and you still have time to jump in. Players have time to jump in. But, Randy, we've seen all the key guys for Auburn come out and say, I'm not getting in the portal.
Yeah.
There's no mass exodus right now at Auburn. And Auburn went 5-7. It lets you know, and you and I had talks with some of the players, that the culture down there and the field is good. The attitude's good. The kids are in good shape. They just need a break. You saw Damari Alston yesterday come out with a statement. He said, look, I know we've been through some ups and downs, and, it'd be easy to walk out the door, but he said, it's coming, Auburn fans. Just hang on. I mean, that's coming from one of the players. That's not a fan talking, okay? This is a kid saying, we're putting the work in. I know we're as disappointed as y'all are, but just hold on. It's coming. I promise. I didn't see Perry Thompson get in the portal. I didn't see Bryce Kane get in the portal. I didn't see, Malcolm Simmons get in the portal. We saw all these guys in this highly touted recruiting class from last year say, we're going to ride this thing out, man. We came here for a reason. And that's exactly what Damari Alston said. He said, I came to Auburn for a reason. because I love it down here. And we're going to get it right. And so I love that attitude. Now, I said it yesterday on the show. You got to start winning some football games, or this ain't going to ride out forever. So you got to start winning some football games. But right now, even coming off a 5-7 season and disappointing, the Auburn players are upbeat and they're excited to get started again.
I just think it's time for Hugh Freeze and his staff to transition away from a rebuilding project to we have no excuses anymore. And that needs to be the
They don't have any excuses now.
But I'm telling you, an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid needs to hear from you, and the fan base needs to hear from you that you're not going to hear me come on a press conference anymore and make an excuse for why we don't have the Bows and Joes to compete in this conference. No, that's not going to work anymore. Stop saying it. We don't want to hear it. And the reason that it's not, now I'm giving you benefit of the doubt that the reason that we're not saying that's because of your effort. Let me say that. I want to preface it with Hugh Freeze and his staffs are the reason that we feel like we got enough talent to compete. We competed this year, but we did a very, very poor job of coaching them up offensively. And next year, you need to take credit for that. If it's in a bad shape like it was this year, Hugh Freeze, you're all to blame. Period. Auburn fans are not going to hear it anymore. And I think the kids, though, from a
because you put a top 15 defense on the field.
I think the kids, from a culture standpoint, love that guy, and he's a hell of a recruiter. He's a magician when it comes to that. I mean, he's still getting top quality classes, but we're a rabid fan base that gives and shows up, and we'll do it in any sport when we feel like we're getting a reciprocal back. You know, the team's giving us their effort back. But I'm questioning at this point. But I want to start hearing him go in front of a mic and go, no more excuses. We're good enough to compete. We may not win them all, but we're good enough to compete. You're not going to hear me come on here. Oh, wait, I mean, we got to get better at this. We got to get better at that. And we're still working back. You know, I just remember where we're coming from. No. At a certain point, get rid of the excuses. I think that's what I'm trying to do.
I think by year 3.
I'm so sick of excuses with Auburn's football program. I've heard them for a decade. No more excuses. Just come out and tell all of us, if we don't win 8 or 9 football games next year, y'all should have a problem with me.
Well, I think by year 3, you know, the honeymoon's over. It's your team by that point. You, especially with the transfer portal and things.
Agreed.
You have been able by then to shape this roster however you want to shape it. Okay, so it's your team at this point. And Kalen DeBoer is doing the same thing at Alabama. I listened to Jim Dunaway yesterday, and he said Alabama's rebuilding. And Alabama's rebuilding in a different way, but Kalen DeBoer is having to go get his players that fit his system. And, you know, he issued some type of, statement saying he thanked the receivers this year for being patient and, you know, sorry they didn't get to do as much as they thought they were going to do, but he had to craft offense around the weapons that he had and what he felt comfortable calling. You know, and he had to craft offense around Jalen Milroe, but that's not Kalen DeBoer's style. You know, he's going to have to go out and get his people. So, again, my point is this is year 3 for Hugh Freeze. All that should be in the hay should be in the barn at this point for him. The roster, and even Jason Caldwell and you and I have talked about this multiple times, this roster now looks like an SEC roster. It's in the top tier of this conference, depth-wise. You know, there still may be some youth in some positions, but we saw what DJ Durkin and the defensive staff did with youth.
They didn't use excuses.
They didn't use it, and they just got better every week.
Yep.
Every week. All right, Friday we'll be at Bunkers in Auburn. Excited about that. Looking forward to being over there, so make sure you come out and see us on Friday. Had some people text us yesterday, said they plan on coming by to see us. Our good friend Alan Brewer over there, their establishment is awesome. The simulation days that you can come in and play, the food is outstanding. Randy and I can personally attest to that. They got one of the coolest, if not the coolest bar in all of Auburn. It's a place for family and friends. Got all the TVs up in there to watch all the games that are going to be going on. So make sure you come by and see us on Friday at noon for our Auburn Blitz TV show at Bunkers on West Glen. Excited about that, Randy.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We keep saying how nice the place is. I don't think that you can know what we're talking about unless you walk in. So a great time for you to do that. It's lunch on this Friday from 12 to 1. Sensa Green's another great partner of ours. Wade Bennett, part of our program, heating, cooling, installation, not only in the Lake Martin region, but Auburn, Opelika, and also up in Huntsville. So give a call to Sensa Green there, and they're the Carrier dealer. So if you're looking for a Carrier unit in those areas of the state, make sure to give our good friend Wade Bennett a call, and he'll take care of you. Always great specials out there for that too. So call him, let him know you heard that on Auburn Blitz, and he'll get you set up. And Brett, I'm here in Dadeville, Alabama. Lee Apparel and Sign Source have been part of all of our programming from day one, and Lee Apparel's wide open here at the end of the year. I keep saying elections matter. I think there's a lot of confidence in our country right now from a business standpoint. Things are going to change and transition to some positive momentum on that side, maybe from a tax basis. But if you've got marketing and advertising budgets that you'd like to spend before the end of the year, from promotional products to corporate apparel and all of the above, Lee Apparel can help with that. And our Sign Source business is growing by leaps and bounds. And we got a lot of good news, hopefully coming here in the next week or so, with one, maybe two new locations in the Auburn region that we'll be able to talk about. But 256-825-0197 is our phone number here in Dadeville. We can help you with signs from start to finish, from designing that sign to installing that sign. Give us a call here at Sign Source.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Those numbers are trickling up every day. So we want you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. You can also hit that alert button on Facebook and YouTube. That way, when we're on live at any point in time, our podcast, our shows, you're going to get an alert right to your phone or to your device. So we appreciate all of you out there. We appreciate all the kind comments here in the last month. We love this podcast. This is what we love to do more than anything. And you guys make it. All of you that watch and comment and spread the word. We really, really appreciate everything that you do as far as helping us spread our brand around out there. So if you like it, spread the word and go subscribe to our YouTube channel. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for the podcast this morning. Again, Auburn Blitz will be on at noon today. It'll be Andy and JJ. They'll be talking a lot about the things that we talked about, plus a lot more. Man, the numbers. I know they'll get a little baseball talk in today. This Juan Soto contract, I never in my life. We're approaching the first $1 billion signee in baseball. It's coming. It'll probably Shohei Ohtani the next time his contract comes up, would be my guess. But I think this Juan Soto Mets contract is upwards of close to $800 million. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, Max Fried, they'll talk about. That's unfortunate for us Braves fans, and he's heading to the Yankees. The rich get richer in that sport, and it's the day and age that we live in college football too. We talk about it all the time. I don't see any end in sight. How the top teams ever stop getting the top talent, because it's a money grab at this point. You got to know how to play that game, and luckily right now as Auburn fans, we're playing that game pretty well when it comes to getting the right amount of talent on campus. We're doing it better than we ever have. I'll believe that.
No doubt. All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll catch you next time.